Excited to be coming to you this morning with class number 2 today. Just some quick introductions. My name is Chris Womlitz. I'm a senior technology solutions consultant over at Remax LLC. And joining me from the first class is Jacob Selecki, technology solutions consultant. We're really excited today because over the next hour or so, we're going to be talking and taking a deep dive into your websites. But before we do that, let's take a look at some things to keep in mind. The first thing is that you are muted, but we do encourage your participation. We'll be asking several questions, and this class is very hands-on. We're going to be doing a lot inside of the product. So please keep in mind, use the Q&A for questions as you have been. It helps us keep everything organized. I will try to keep an eye on the chat, but it moves pretty quick, so things will inevitably get missed. These sessions will be recorded and emailed to you along with a post-event survey, and we would really appreciate your feedback because it helps us get better. And if you choose to take notes, which I highly recommend since it's one of the best ways for adult learners to retain information, keep notes on the things we're doing and saying. While you will have the recording, we will also be sending out the slides, checklists, and some additional training materials. So don't take notes necessarily on the slides. Try to focus on things we're doing and saying. To see where we're going, let's first see where we've been. You've completed day 1, and your first class this morning was all about Megaphone. This class is going to pivot a little bit and focus primarily on the Boosh websites, and we're going to be going very deep. So while this is an advanced class, we will be doing some things that anybody can access. We'll be building out a page, saving it as a template, and talking and taking a deep dive into some of the SEO parameters that you have the ability to take advantage of using the Boosh website builder. And then a little bit later, during our lunch, we'll be taking a user experience class. We'll be focusing on mobile apps and a lot more around leads. So this is your Level Up Your Business with Intentional Branding website workshop. Jacob, I'd like to hand it over to you now to cover our agenda and kick things off.
Sounds great. Awesome. Well, yes, as you said, Chris, what we're going to be focusing on is your Boosh website. And so the first thing is we're going to talk through customizing your Boosh website with valuable resources to help consumers on their journey. Remember, we're focusing on the intentional branding, and we're just putting it now to your websites, just as we do with our Megaphone class as well. Number 2, we're going to create new local content for any page on your website. We're going to be doing this with you, so that way you have the instructions and the guide to go ahead and work on this on your own and see examples of great websites. And number 3, we're going to produce that web page template to create a consistent design throughout your website. This is going to be very impactful and hopefully encourage you to step into creating some pages. But before we dive into really the details of the website, I think a lot of us want to know, what is the reason? Why should I really care about having my own online home search site, right? What does this matter for me? And a lot of my, different business comes from referrals. I don't need a website, right? Well, what we have here is just some stats that we want to go through initially. And initially, what we're looking at is the NAR 2020 Home Buyer Profile and Generational Trend Report. That's where these numbers come from here. And so what I want to first take you through is our first stat, which says that 44% inside of this in this report said that the first step taken in the home search process was looking for a home online. Let that sit with you a little bit right there, right? That, people are looking for homes online, that they're going to all different websites for that. And that's the first step they're taking. I'm actually looking at that number and I'm a little surprised that's not even higher than 44%. Because to me, I think the first step is absolutely looking online, that they're not even necessarily going to their agent first, but they're just looking online first. So let's look at our next stat, which says 84% of homeowners used the internet to search for homes. Again, I think that that's extremely true when it comes to this case, that most homeowners are using the internet to search for homes online because they know that's number 1, where their home could sell, as well as where they're going to find it as quick as possible. Lastly, we're looking at 42% of agents have their own website provided by their firm. Now, again, why is this important? Well, we look at 42%, that's under half of the agents have their own websites. Well, again, if we're looking at where are the consumers at, where are they looking for homes? Well, we know is they're looking for it on their websites. So that means that agents have to have a website. They have to have something provided. And as we know, and what we're really talking about through this class is you absolutely have an outstanding website that is going to allow consumers to search for properties as well as do much more too. And so that's why we want to look at the focus of here's the why behind why this matters is because this is where your consumers are at. So that being said, kind of what we talked about with Megaphone too is right. We want to look at when it comes to websites now, where do we meet our potential clients where they are at? And what is important when it comes to seeing that? And so I have to ask, and just kind of like we did in our previous class, what do we mean and what do you think it means, especially when it comes to websites? Where do we meet when I say meet our potential clients where they're at? What do you think that means? And if you can put that in the chat, we'd love to see some of your responses, especially when it comes to websites. It is a little bit different. See coming in already, understanding what they want. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. When we need to make sure we do that, meet them during their web search. That's a great point there, right? I think that we can help provide resources and details that they need. So that way we are doing that. It's a great look for commonality. Absolutely. They're on the internet, so we should be too, looking for houses and or agents. Absolutely. Right. We want to make sure that we're providing those resources too. Great. Okay. So exactly, we want to meet them where they're at, right? We want to see exactly where they are going and see what you can provide. And your websites are a great way to do that. You as the agent, you know your local market. You know the ins and outs of the buying and selling process. And so that way, because we are saying consistently, we need to give them what they need. We need to meet them where they're at. We need to look at their wants and the things that are going to be helpful for them. That's what your website can help do too. It's going to help them give them what they need when they need it as well. So great responses. Absolutely agree with that. So what could potential new clients need? When we think of that, right, I think there are many different options that we can look at to see what they exactly need. And there are a lot of different details that you can provide when it comes to your website. And so we just want to highlight a few ways that you can help meet them where they're at and also provide things that make you that local expert. So the first thing that I'm really looking at is everyone wants to know what kind of school resources do you have when it comes to websites, right? Or, you know, what are the local properties that are around certain schools? So that is extremely helpful to find out. Well, with your websites, you can not only show them that by just looking at one of the listing properties on your websites, it'll show you the local schools and ratings too, but you can also provide resources such as pages that are going to provide in-depth resources when it comes to schools. You can provide that content about maybe your districts and what they provide and what are the options too. So that's just one option there. But also, you have many other options such as giving your local vendors that you work with as options. I think as a first-time home buyer, that's a great opportunity to be able to see that, is to see exactly what are the people I should be working with for inspections, or if I'm looking for, you know, even different aspects of mortgage brokers, right? If you have those people that you work with, they're going to see you as that trusted resource that they already know. And so then they would absolutely work with the people you are highlighting. It not only helps those potential clients, but it builds a better relationship with your vendors, especially if you're highlighting them on your website. Another thing is make sure to highlight different aspects that are in your community. So if you have local events or really some key details about certain neighborhoods or just your community in general, that really is going to highlight that area. Again, that's going to make you seem like the local expert as well as provide a resource too. So I'm looking to move in a certain area. I get onto your website because I'm searching things about that local area. I now see that, wow, a real estate agent has all these resources for me. I'm looking to move to that area. I'm definitely going to work with them if they have those resources. Now, when we start looking more and more about, okay, we want to provide those great types of resources, but obviously when it comes to the buying and selling process, we need to provide some in-depth resources too. And so make sure that you know how the buyer and seller resources are inside of your Boosh website. You actually already have some default content and pages when it comes to a buyer's and seller's guide as well. But you can customize that content and make it your own too. And lastly, make sure to share information and market reports when it comes to your local area. You can definitely add any of that type of content on any pages that you want to create, or just different content that we're going to talk through as well. And so all these different aspects, right? These are powerful tools that really provide great resources when it comes to your Boosh websites, and really a website that's going to have the right type of branding and give the resources that your potential clients need. So again, this class is all about Boosh websites, right? We know that's exactly what we're talking about. And we can see that as a Remax agent, you have access to an extremely powerful website. And so we absolutely want to highlight that for you and make sure you know that you can access all the different type of opportunities that we talked about those pages all through your Boosh website. You have the opportunity to really customize that and make it your own and make it your own brand. And so that's really what we're going to walk you through today is how can you make this your own branded website and really provide the resources that your clients need to. So what we want to first look at is we want to take you a step-by-step of small ways to get started to really focus this on your personal branding. And when I think of a website, one of the first things I can think of is what is the first thing that someone sees? Well, it's your homepage, right? It's the first impression that everyone sees right off the bat. They go to your website and they see your homepage, and that's the first impression. If you see the screen that we're looking at right now, right, you have an opportunity right off the bat to say, I have just this detail to make it first impression, right? So what do we want to look at when it comes to a first impression, when it comes to your Boosh website? Well, we want to build that brand awareness and engage with those potential consumers, right? We want to make sure that we have some great branding. We have a way that they can see who you are and the location that you serve, as well as even a resource too, and a search property or a search site too, right? They need to be able to see that they can search for properties. And so with your homepage, that's what we're going to focus on, are those key aspects. So we want to not only look at those type of aspects and really have that engagement, but we want to make sure that this is going to, as they see initially, just right when they go to that page and they start scrolling down, what are some things that you want to include to make sure that they are engaging with your website and engaging with you as well? So we want to make sure that this provides, again, those resources of what they need, even on your homepage. And that can link to the other pages that we talked about, which we'll explain how that works as we go throughout today's session. But also, we want to look at how you can strengthen your brand that you're creating. So they initially look at, this is who this real estate agent is. And as they're scrolling down, they're finding out more and more about who you are and what you offer. That's going to strengthen your brand, but also it's going to establish credibility, right? And you can establish credibility by showing who you are and your brand, and also even in providing resources, showing the communities that you serve. And lastly, the best thing is you can even show any reviews that you have, right? Manual testimonial or testimonials in general are going to really show the type of agent you are. And so you always want to make sure that if you can put that front and center, that's really going to establish that credibility. And so that's where we want to focus first, is let's look at your homepage and make that first impression. So how do we go ahead and actually do that? What ways can we edit what's inside of my homepage? I know right off the bat, when I publish my website, I have those different templates I can choose from, but also how do I then go in and edit this and really make it to my personal brand? Well, you can utilize what we have called is our CMS editor. Think of that as your back end to really edit your website. I think of this as a really easy tool that you can go ahead and edit what's already existing. There's already a lot of default content inside of your homepage. And so you really get the opportunity to choose that template and then edit that to really make it to your own personal brand. And so the CMS editor is going to give you the opportunity to edit different aspects of your website. You can see that on our screen on the left-hand side here, you're going to see what that editor looks like. And you'll see on the left-hand side is where you have all those content blocks listed and a preview on the right-hand side. You can edit those. You can move the content blocks around. You can delete those. You can really make it your own. And you can always add additional blocks to your website as well. So you have so many different options when it comes to really editing and making this your own. When I think of content blocks, right, these are your building blocks of your website, especially when we look at our homepage, right? It's the building blocks of that. And so you can add different content blocks that are really going to allow consumers to engage with your homepage and with your set website as well. So again, when we look at your homepage and the first impressions here, we want to see how can we easily change this and edit this to be your branding and represent who you are, not just some default content, which is great, but we also want to make sure that this is taking it to the next level when we're being intentional about our branding. Now, what we want to do is provide you with a couple examples that you can use when it comes to some stellar homepages for some inspiration. So if you're looking at this and I'm not sure exactly how I get started or how I can make this my own, we're going to go into an example here. Just as Tim said before, though, if you want to go ahead and take a screenshot of this, we'll have this in the chat as well. Just as a reminder too, any of these slides will be available to you at the end of the session. So you'll have a link that will go back to any of our slides. So any stats that you see or any links that we provide will all be provided to you later as well. So if you've taken this screenshot, please note to the activity that will give you access to these exact websites. But we're going to jump into Kenzie's website, which is our first website in this section here. So I'm going to go ahead and go onto her website to show you some key details on her homepage. So as I go into Kenzie's homepage, we just want to point out a couple things that really shows how intentional she was when it comes to a first impression. That's really what we want to point out right off the bat. And so when I go to this homepage and without scrolling down at all, what I want you to notice is a couple things. We can see right off the bat here that I can tell exactly whose website this is, right? I can say that this is Kenzie, this is who I'm working with, but not only that, but I see exactly her logo and her brand. So I can already get an idea of the type of branding and really what she embodies with this logo, right? But not only that, with just looking at this picture here, I kind of get an idea that she's probably not servicing areas in Florida necessarily, right? And as I scroll through different pictures, I continue to see some different images that allow me to represent that, yep, I get a good idea of where she's at here, mountainous areas, different things like that. You can see different pictures of herself as well. And so it not only shows me what her brand is right off the bat, but I can see a good idea of the location. So that's an incredible thing just to think about there too. Now, as we scroll down here, we got a great first impression. And so as we talked about, we want to look at what else can we provide right away that provides us as real estate agents that we are the resource that they need. Well, right off the bat, Kenzie included the seller's guide, the home valuation, and the buyer's guide in a really unique way by just making it pop out by using some image and text here to launch them to the seller's guide, home valuation, and buyer's guide. Now, these 3 pages are actually provided for you as default pages, which we'll get into a little bit more of how you can find those, edit those, and use those. But she just created graphics that link to those right off the bat. So I love that she does that right away. Then as I continue to scroll down here, what I want to point out here is this featured listing section here. So we can see that she's probably highlighting maybe her featured listing right now. But as I scroll down here, what I love to see is we have a featured listing or a saved search block here that highlights the area that she serves. So we can either view this area on a map, which is going to use that saved search and give those exact details and location on our map view, or I can just continue to scroll through and look at the different properties that are highlighted. Now, again, we're already on the properties section. So how do we look and say, okay, I can see some properties, but I want to look in a specific area. Does Kenzie's website have a way for me to do that? Well, again, we know we can search at the top, but I want to learn more about that area. I'm not familiar with this area at all. So how can I find more information about that? Well, she's provided tools right off the bat to link you to these exact community pages that you can utilize. So such as here with this Breckenridge, Colorado, what I can do is I see a short little information here. And once I click here, it's going to take me to a community page. And again, as a reminder, we're going to walk you through how you create pages like this today, but just a great way to highlight this area. And as I scroll down here, what we talked about too is how do we make ourselves, our brand pop out? How do we make ourselves show off too? And so as I scroll down a little past here, what I want to highlight one other thing on Kenzie's website. And I love this aspect. She included just personal pictures about herself, her dog, and maybe even and hiking and things that she likes to do, because you learn something about her through this. So this is an amazing example of how we can really work to have powerful branding. And so awesome website here. Again, please feel free to come back to this at any time and see how you can actually go ahead and just use this for inspiration too. So I'm going to take us back to our slides. Just again, as a reminder, you can access this later for this activity, as well as these other websites. But now that we've kind of seen how we can look at our first impression, we're going to take you through how you can actually create these custom pages, look at default pages, and really dive into content. So Chris, can you guide us through that?
Yeah, so when we talk about customizing the website, what we're really talking about is a system of progression. So whether you are an expert inside of the system or maybe you're seeing it for the first time today, we first are going to talk about customizing default content, which is the content that exists when you hit the publish button, which hopefully you've done by now. And then we're going to work our way all the way to creating a page from scratch. So when we start doing these kinds of things, the first question often is, what kind of things should we be changing, editing, or adding? A great place to start is right inside of your email inbox or your text messages or your voicemails. Consider those common questions that are often being asked by your current clientele and build content that helps answer those questions. To give you an example, I'm currently shopping for a vehicle. Thankfully, my vehicle has lasted for a long time, so it's been like a year that I've been shopping. But I'm reading all kinds of research and Popular Mechanic and all these different pieces of content to start informing my purchasing decision. The average home buyer or home seller is doing the same thing. And with the size of that sale or purchase, you can imagine that this is even going to happen for a longer period than that of a vehicle search. So start mining the resources that you have right inside of your cell phone to start coming up with frequently asked questions. What things are people asking? But we have other places that you can grab these kinds of materials as well. When you take a look at your default content that is on your site when you hit publish, we're looking at things like a buyer's guide, a seller's guide, mortgage considerations, relocation information, and then we have some lead generating opportunities with the account benefits and mobile app benefits pages. Just looking at this, the content is great, but it is by its very kind of nature going to be really generic. You know, this has to fit every agent and it has to be very open-ended. This is a great place to start learning the tool set. And these are items that are very often clicked on inside of the websites based on our traffic. So when we take a look at something, for example, like a buyer or seller's guide, once you get in there, what you do with a buyer or seller is going to look very, very different than what is on the page by default. And for anybody that is starting to just build their skill set with the Boosh Website Builder, this gives you a great opportunity to kind of learn it with content that's already available and start slowly progressing to the point where you're building a new page. So let's take a look at the default content page on the left. It talks about a seller's guide. It mentions things like choose a REMAX agent. And with just a few tweaks, that this can now become much more targeted to your likely constituents and customers. We can change this to the Denver seller's guide or the Metro Denver seller's guide. We can talk about choosing a local Denver agent. We can swap out photos to make it look much more like a property that is in your area, where you can use photos you've taken in the past. We can continue customizing this until it's totally your own using the stock blocks that are in there. This is so that instead of having to kind of mastermind this whole thing from start to finish, you have this kind of almost on rails experience where you get to start building up the skill sets and really making these pages your own, and so that yours will look totally different than anybody else's. Now, when you're doing this, one thing to keep in mind is to incorporate local keywords. We'll take a deeper dive into SEO a little bit later, but things that people search for online are probably not things like buyer's guide. And if they are, those things are very generic. One of the best things you can do for your site and for your marketing is to be very specific with the people that you want to serve. So one step up would be moving things like buyer's guide to Denver buyer's guide. Even better would be specific neighborhoods. Here we mentioned one neighborhood in Denver called Cherry Creek. You can see it in the header image. And so as you become more specific, your marketing becomes more targeted, and therefore it will become more effective. Now, one thing that we want to focus on is the ability to highlight local communities. These pages are great because there's often a large disparity between what people are searching for online and what they're able to find. We don't have the time to do the exercise in this class, but I recommend maybe on the break or a little bit later on today, if you have a second, Google the neighborhood that you live in. That's the specific HOA or neighborhood that you're in, or part of town or your borough or suburb. What you'll find often is that there's really not a lot of content. Large companies like REMAX or big portal sites like Zillow, Realtor.com, they couldn't go through and write a website page about every single neighborhood in the United States. That'd be a momentous task. But you have not only the ability, but you have most of the knowledge about the neighborhoods you serve. So here we have an example one for Cherry Creek, one of the neighborhoods in Denver. We see at the top an image about Cherry Creek, some information, a description of the neighborhood. And then immediately we see new listings in Cherry Creek. And we see that these search blocks perform really well, especially in a tight inventory market like the one we're in today. Moving on, you'll see some local information, possibly some community video if you have access to some, or you're recording video. You'll see local link outs to perhaps the HOA website or things to do in Cherry Creek, or you can even build those with the blocks. And then very importantly, we have a contact form at the bottom to capture some leads. Now, one way to find inspiration, like I said, is turning to Google. So here we have a search for Denver neighborhoods, and just kind of going down top to bottom, we see that we start to get some trends that we can look at. The first is that at the top three, which are the three most likely to be clicked on, are Quick Guide to the Best Neighborhoods in Denver, Denver Neighborhood Guide, and the Coolest Neighborhoods in Denver, Colorado. Notice that each one of them mentioned the word Denver, which is one of the reasons that they're showing up for this keyword. Two of the three use the word guide. And then the third one has a different marketing spin where it talks about the coolest neighborhoods. So some ideas that you can spin off of this are things like up and coming neighborhoods or popular suburbs. But I would also challenge you to look at the people also ask section on Google, because those are searches that people perform very likely or most commonly after this search. So if we take a look at our next slide, what we'll start seeing is some searches that are a little bit more specific. Here's one about living in Denver, Colorado, right? You don't just sell a home, you sell a lifestyle. So our top results are things like 11 things we want you to know if you're moving to Denver, pros and cons of living in Denver, is moving to Denver right for you, a 2021 guide, living in Denver, and 15 things to know before moving to Denver. Notice that the very top position and then the one that's in fifth both use numbers as a list. Other ones mentioned pros and cons, is it right for, and then one was a little bit more generic with living in. So you have some content ideas that you could start utilizing just based on this little bit of research we've done here. 10 reasons I love living in, why Denver is a great place to live. Reasons people are moving to Denver, things to consider before moving to Denver, and just swap out Denver with your local communities. I'm certainly have at this point in the market, I've noticed some trends about where people are moving inside of your local community or metroplex. What kinds of things are people asking? What suburbs are around the metro? Are there areas that I should know about the pros and cons of living in before I move there? And that's all content that you could be producing and putting on your website and capturing a lot of search traffic. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to pass over to Jacob, and we're going to give you a kind of outline of a page that you can build. We're going to be starting from scratch, creating a new page, and we probably won't have time to go through every single block. So I'm going to make sure that you have a link inside of the chat that takes you to a Google Doc that shows you kind of a recommended community page layout. Of course, feel free to make it your own and move the blocks around to your preferences and liking. This is just an example to help you get started. We're going to create it as a new page, but keep in mind that you can save this as a template. So if this is going to be part of your marketing mix and your strategy, you'll want to save it as a template so that every time you create a new one for a community, you're able to bring all the blocks in and just change out the content of the blocks. And this is going to save you a lot of time. This is also great if you have other kind of pages that you're going to have multiple of on your site in part of your website strategy. Saving it as a template will save you a lot of time kind of down the line. So Jacob, I'm going to pass it over to you now. I'm going to put the link to the outline in the chat. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A and chat as we move along.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we're going to dive right into creating this community page template together. Like Chris said here, we do have access to our outline that we're going to use. And just so you know, as you utilize that, that is going to take us directly to, let me go to that page really quick here. So that's going to take us right to our outline here. I'm just going to reload this up, and this is going to guide you through the process of creating this page. So it's going to go step by step, going through exactly what we're going to do in just a second here, but just wanted to show you exactly what that's going to look like. So if you are on here later, you're going to see the exact steps. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take you inside of MaxCenter, and we're going to access our Boosh platform, and we're going to start going through and building out this page together. So I'm just going to go into my Boosh platform here, logged in really quick. And what we want to first do is I want to show you where we're going to build this template out of. So under our website section here, you can see our website section has a drop-down menu. We're going to click on that drop-down menu. From the drop-down menu, we're going to hover over our template section. And I'm just going to show you first off what our overall template is going to look like as the finished product. So as this loads up here, just so you know, what we're doing here is building a template so that way you can utilize this for community pages in the future. So you can see right over here, one of the first sections that I have here is a section called Downtown Denver. Well, this is a template that I can utilize at any time. And so I'm just going to click on that preview button to show you exactly what we are building out during this session. Because as Chris said, we're not going to be able to go through every section here, but you can see that this is going to highlight this area. We can see a saved search, information about the area, some information about the schools, as well as a contact form. So this is kind of our finished product that we are looking at right off the bat here. Of course, my Zoom thing is right in the way here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to start going into creating our page from scratch here and use this as a template. I'm actually going to go to my website drop-down menu and go to my pages, and we're going to actually start this as a brand new page. So from this section, want to make sure that everyone is here. Again, I went to that website drop-down menu, went to pages, and again, we're going to start from scratch on this page to create our template. And so what I'm going to do is go to add page and create new page here. Now, I just want to highlight here that what we are doing here is creating it from a page. And what you might see that's a little bit different in your instructions is creating it from a template. We're just showing you the page option of how you can create a page and then use it as a template. So if everyone's looking at the instructions, just want to give that as a quick reference here. But I'm just going to name this, since this is going to be a template here, I'm just going to call this community page here. And under my description, I'm just going to say I'm going to use this as my community template. This description is just for yourself, just as a heads up here. And what you're going to see is this page URL, which we'll get more into SEO later. This is going to highlight it'll be your website, the / and then community page is what the URL slug is. Again, this is just a template, and so this can always be changed, but your name will represent that URL slug. So we'll click on save. And right off the bat, what you're going to notice is instantly it's going to ask for a hero image that you can select. And this is going to be for any new template or any new page that you create. It's always going to ask for a hero image. So we're going to click on that block and we're going to choose an image right off the bat. So I'm going to click here to choose an image, and this is going to take us into our image content library. This is going to have stock photos that we can choose from. We're also going to be able to see any past photos that we've uploaded, and you can also choose a file to upload as well, and you can see those file types. But for this section, what I just want to do is I want to just search for city, because let's just say I don't have any pictures. And again, right here, what we see are these photos that are going to show up. And so because I see an option already for downtown Denver, I'm going to select this photo here. Once I select that, on the bottom right corner, you'll see the button to insert that. So we'll click on insert, and then we'll create our title and add our description here. So we're just going to call this downtown Denver for our example here. And then I'm just going to put in a quick description as we go in here. So I'm just going to use just a description I came up with earlier here. That's just going to highlight this area. And then once I see that this is done, I'm going to click on save. And you can see my hero image is now input. Now we want to start now by adding more details, really highlighting this local area and this community. So what I want to add next is kind of give some more information about this area. You know, really when we talk about like SEO and community pages, like Chris said, we want to highlight that local area that maybe won't be found on those other search engines that not search engines, but things like Zillow, Realtor.com. They're not going to have all this detailed information that you can provide. So I'm going to add a different block, a text block that talks about this specific area. So to add any blocks, on the bottom left-hand side, you're going to see a button that says add block. This is where you can choose from all of those content blocks that we talked about beforehand. And so what I'm looking for in this section, and that you're going to see in your instructions, is to add a text block. Now I can see that right off the bat here, but if I needed to look for any of my content blocks, I can scroll down and look for those, or I can also use the search here too and type in text. And you can see the different options that will contain that search. So I'll use our text block here. And this is just going to ask me to put in any text that I would like to have. So again, I already have this here, so I'm going to bring this over in this section. What I want to reference as well in our text block, just for the sake of time, is you can edit the different style with this text. So if you want to ever add a header and add some text below that, you can change this from paragraph to, let's say, header. You can obviously change any of our format. And you can also include a link as well too. So if you want to link out to a different website, again, that's a great tactic when it comes to SEO. You can do that all inside of here. But it looks like we have our text in here. And now what I want to do is on my bottom left-hand side, I just want to save this. And that's going to take me outside of our content block and back to building this page. And so we can now see on our right-hand side that this has been included. One of the things that I think is really important when we look at these community pages is, yes, we're giving this valuable resources, but of course, you're a real estate agent. You want to make sure you're providing all the different content when it comes to real estate activities like searching for homes. So one of the things that you want to highlight right away on this first impression of this page is adding a saved search block that's going to highlight this area. So I'm going to search for another block I'm just going to go again and click on add block on my bottom left-hand corner. And I'm just going to start and make it easier that I know I'm looking for the block save search. And to make it really easy, I'm just going to start typing that in. And you can see as I type that in, this block is going to show up. So this save search block is going to allow you to really target a certain area, location such as address, city, zip code, as well as even neighborhoods and county that you can highlight certain listings from. Now, this is going to automatically give us a title called featured listings. But again, this is a local community page. So we look at any default content that our Boosh websites provide, and we want to see how can we change that to highlight this local area. So what I'm going to do is actually change our title here and change that to put find homes for sale in downtown Denver, Colorado. So when you're looking at your own community page or your template to, replace that downtown Denver, Colorado with find homes for sale in insert your community in there. Now you can see here too that this is giving us plenty of different options. As I go down for my title, I can sort how these are provided. I can show which ones are newest to this website, or I could also change by price, bedrooms, bathrooms, year built, as well as square feet. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just change this to price here. And you can see that that does change for us. And then I want to go ahead and really target, again, this location. And so what I want to do is, again, we're focusing on downtown Denver. So that's what I'm going to start typing in here. And we can see that we can actually target by specific neighborhoods. So I'm going to select downtown Denver as my area here. And what you're going to see is once I select that location, it's going to actually ask me one other section that I can add. It's going to ask me, do I want to put a button or do I want to not have one? And when I click on view on map, what that's going to allow is anyone can click on that view and map and see the save search on a specific map with the properties. Very similar to like the search they would do on your website as well as on .com as well. Now, one of the other things that we can do is we can add additional features. So if you want to target this even more, we're not going to go through all the details, but you can do things of making it for sale, for rent, changing the price, beds, baths. You can see the different property types that you want to make this. You have a lot of different options when it comes to these saved searches. So it looks like we have a great saved search that's here targeting downtown Denver. And so I'm going to save this content block as well. Now, just for the sake of time here, I'm only going to do one other content block, but you can see throughout our activity, what we want to continue to keep highlighting is different information about this area using great images, text. As Chris talked about, you can use video. So if you have a video of your local area or a video of yourself talking about that area, that would be a great idea to add for this website. But lastly, one of the greatest blocks I think is, well, to turn anyone who shows up on this page into an actual lead, we want to have a contact form at the bottom. So what we recommend is always at the bottom of your website, add that contact form. So I'm just going to click on add block here, type in contact form, and we can see that shows up here. And you can change that title to really make that personalized, contact me today instead of saying nothing, right? And click on save. Again, we know that for the sake of time here, we're not going through every single content block that's on your activity. So that's why we recommend making sure that you look at that and go through that activity, build out your template, and ensure that you can start creating these community pages. But now that we have built out our page, our test page here, what I'm going to do is, if you're wondering, how do I make sure that I save this? All you have to do to ensure that this is saved is on the upper right-hand corner, you'll click on the blue exit button. We now can see that it's going to take us back into our pages section here, right? And so I want to go ahead and make sure and ensure that I can see this page that I've created. And so we know that we called it our community page, was our template here. So I'm scrolling down to my pages and I can see that page that we've created. From here, I can edit it, I can preview it, but because we do this as a page, we wanted to show you as well that these three little dots are going to give us option to actually clone this as a template. So that way, if you can see here, we went through the process of creating this as a page, but you can always click on clone as template and use this now as a template. So a great way to then ensure that our page is now turned into a template. When you create this as a template, you can utilize any of your templates when you're creating brand new pages too. And so, for example, if we have now created our template, we want to start building out our community pages. How do we go then and do that? On our pages section, all you'll do is click add page. Instead of creating it from brand new, you're going to create from template, and you'll select the template that you've created. So you can see my previous template that is built out, and it's going to have that information there for me. And all I'm doing is changing out the content, but in reality, this is already built for me. So just a great option there. I'm going to take us back to our slides now. And what we're going to spend the rest of the time talking through next is you have the option when it comes to these great pages. And we want to make sure that when you have these different community pages, or if they're vendor pages, or they're highlighting different schools, that you make sure and ensure they show up on your website. And we're going to talk about that in 1 second here. But we also want to talk about is, what if I want to create a page for an event that I have, or for a different holiday that's coming up, and I want to make sure that I don't show that on my website all the time. Well, we actually have the option where you can create unlinked pages. Well, you might be asking, what are unlinked pages? What's the reason for using those? And a lot of the reason for using an unlinked page is to ensure that you still have an awesome page that you've created. You just may not want that to show up on your website inside your menu item. And so an unlinked page is going to give you the URL, and you can put that anywhere that you would like, whether that be to post that via an email that you're sending to send as a resource, or also, like I said, if you are doing a special event and you want to highlight that through your website, it's going to still help with our SEO, but it's just not going to show up on your available pages. So we wanted to make sure to highlight this section here. But as we're talking about your Booj website and thinking about the page that we just created, I think, again, we want to go back to that question of, does that page automatically show up on my website? Is that already on the direct page? Well, when we think about your website, we showed you the home page, and what you may have noticed in the home page is on the upper right-hand corner, there's that menu item. And that menu item is going to show you your navigation for your website. Your navigation just means it's going to show you all the different pages that someone can access on your website. And so what we see through our navigation are different menu items, which I think of when you think of a menu item, think of that as a category that you're putting your pages into. So we can see on our left-hand side here, for example, is for buy or for sell. If someone's looking for any resources underneath that, we can see that there are web pages underneath there. So it's just telling people a category that you're putting everything into. Also, great example, we just built out a community page. What you can do is create a menu item that says my local communities or local communities near me, right? And then show what those communities are underneath that. So you have a menu item that's going to put that into categories. You have those web pages that we built out. And so those could be either those default pages or brand new pages. And then you're going to move those pages to your active navigation. Another great thing that you can also do is with your menu items, you can actually link out to any external links. So what we mean by that is, you can see for this example, you can create a menu item where someone can actually click on that menu item and it'll go directly to a different website. So for this example, it says visit Remax. So that could go exactly to remax.com. So a lot of different options what we can do inside of that section. So what does that look like on our back end? How do we ensure that those pages that we just created or any of those default pages go into the right menu item and right category? Well, you can see on your screen here, you have a list of all your available pages. Again, these are any pages that you've created or any default content. And so they don't automatically go into a category once you create a brand new page. Because exactly for our example here, right, we created a community page and it wasn't exactly finished. So I don't want that in my active navigation yet. So when we do finish a page and we want it under our community pages, what we're going to do is just drag and drop from our available pages into our active navigation, and that will ensure it shows up in your menu item. This is also, again, the section where we're going to create those categories, those menu items. So if you're not going to have by default, local communities as a menu item. That's where you can create that. And again, you can do that either as an exact menu item, or you can do it where it goes to an external link as well. So a lot of opportunities that we can see with our navigation there. But really kind of putting this all together here, right? We talked about intentional branding when it comes to your website. And so, Chris, I want to kind of tie it back together as we come to an end here and talk again with what does it mean when it comes to branding for their business, especially with our websites?
Yeah, and ultimately it goes back to that great Maya Angelou quote that says that people will forget what you did or what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so anytime somebody gets a first impression of your brand, it's this inflection point where you're either gaining or losing a potential customer. And so as you start building your website or really just interacting with your brand in any kind of wide level or scaled up level, some questions you may want to ask yourself are things like, why am I making this decision? What things am I hoping to achieve by building out that website page or editing that default content? And how is this going to be perceived by my ideal clientele? There's a great quote by Jared James that says, the right marketing doesn't just bring in the right people, it rejects the wrong ones. And so those are some things to consider as you start to build out your page. Now we have some additional tasks for you to complete. This is things like incorporating local keywords into the default content and starting to edit and merely make it your own. And then adding in that community page, filling it out for one of your local communities, and then bringing it over into your website. If you have any questions about the things we've gone through, and I know we did have to go relatively quickly through those, but if you run into any difficulties or have any questions, remember that we have a team here at RE/MAX that is dedicated to your success. And you can reach out to them 3 different ways. Best and fastest is live chatting through MAX Center. It's the support services tile. Second best and fastest is going to be calling or texting the hotline at 888-398-7171. And the third fastest and best is emailing product support at remax.net. Now we have some links for you that I'm going to go ahead and post in the chat right now that you can click on. These include the community pages, the training materials, and the presentation slides. But I really wanted to spend some time going through some of the questions because we got some really good ones inside of the chat, as well as, the Q&A. One of the questions was about how do when I build out a new page, if I don't want anybody to see it, if it's on linked, isn't it technically published? And there was a couple questions with different variations of that. The answer is yes. However, if you're not driving traffic to a site, or I'm sorry, to a page, and it isn't linked from your site, the only way somebody would really find this is if they're punching in random characters and numbers trying to find these pages. And I'm not quite sure that person exists. So I wouldn't worry so much about having something that somebody could find that isn't ready. If it's not linked to your site and you're not sending traffic to it, it's very unlikely they would be able to discover this. We also had a couple questions come in about landing pages. Using the unlinked pages is a great way to develop those landing pages. You do have some that are already built in, like the home value estimates that you could send folks to. On the buyer side, we mostly have multiple lead generating opportunities on property searches and property search details pages. But you can get very creative with these kinds of sites and different pages and where they're sending traffic back and forth. So just keep in mind that you can be very flexible with these. We had a few questions about links. When you add a link to your navigation, one of the options you have is to open it up in a new window so that people aren't being taken away from your site. So when you add in that menu item, it's just a box that you'll check. And then we had a few questions come in around some more advanced topics that we didn't have a chance to cover just yet. These are things like Facebook Pixel and Google Analytics. For people that are doing their own marketing in Facebook, or you have somebody that's doing that for you, keep in mind that you can install the Facebook Pixel snippet. What this does essentially is it creates some code on your website that tracks people that land on your site. So the same way if you go to Amazon and you look at a pair of sneakers across the internet for the next few days, you see that pair of sneakers everywhere. You have the same ability to do this with your website using the Facebook Ads Manager, but it is a much more advanced concept. If you want to measure website traffic and how people are going into your site, keep in mind that you can install Google Analytics, which will then pull all of your website traffic and data into the Google Analytics dashboard. For both of these, we have extensive videos on Remax University that show you not only how to do this inside of Booj, but also on either Facebook or inside of the Google Analytics dashboard. So you'll want to check out those resources and follow along step by step. We had one other question that I wanted to answer live. Let me find it, Jacob. Give me just a moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
My apologies.
I think too, I saw one come through the Q&A. So while you're looking for that, I know Terry asked, can we ask a link or can we add a link to get our reviews from Rate My Agent? You definitely have the option when it comes to any type of image and text or even text box to add any type of link that you would like to include, or you could do a menu item as well to include that link. You absolutely can do that as well. And I know that that is something that the marketplace team is working on to create an integration with Rate My Agent as well.
Oh, and the other question I wanted to answer was, we had several people talk about, in our market, listings are so low that I don't necessarily want to market communities because by the time a listing would come up in a community, it may already be sold. So I want to kind of change my strategy. And I think that's a great idea. Keep in mind that these web pages are really what you want to make of them. And they really are you serving people that are visiting your website and this will also help generate traffic. So if you want a great example is that last year we put in a template for virtual home buying and some tips and tricks and things to know when buying a home virtually. You could take that same kind of strategy and build out a page about what's going on in the market right now, or how do you buy a house when everything's selling so fast, or whatever really speaks to you and speaks to your target customers. You could absolutely have that page, add in a few keywords and start generating some traffic for your area. One question we got was about PDFs to the website. Yes, when you go to upload your own images, one of the accepted file types is PDF, so you can upload those that way. With that said, Jacob, I believe that is all the questions that were in the Q&A.
I have one open here too that I'll add really quickly. The question was, can you show how the community page can be on the home page, not just on the menu area, which you may have seen with Kenzie's website as well. All she really did was use the link, the website link for that community page. And so in that image and text that she used, she just highlighted that piece of text and hyperlinked that for the page that she had already created. So you'll be able to see that page that you have on your website. And so you would just want to take the link for that page and highlight and hyperlink that text. So that way it goes directly to that page.
Yeah, and this is going to be very important too. If you think about the mobile experience, so like when you go on your cell phone and you go to a website, there was a time where, excuse me, everything was done via menus, and they're still very well, have a lot of clicks from desktop and laptop. But on a tablet or a cell phone, people are used to clicking large buttons that takes them to a page. So using sections to drive traffic via those things like the full featured with photos or the carousel blocks or the image and text is a great idea for your mobile traffic, which is over 50% of traffic online. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and take a 12-minute break. It's 11:28 Eastern. We will be back at 11:40. We'll have a countdown going. Our next class is going to be going very deep into things like SEO and SEO parameters, as well as the mobile app branding and user experience. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.